instead of banning TikTok, let's ban corporate bailouts. Let's ban further billions of dollars for genocide. There's so many good things we could be banning right now, not banning more on our freedom of speech. And the Democrats there have been leading the charge. They're leading the charge on genocide right now. What is more a trademark of fascism than genocide? And it's just staggering. And it's not just the White House, it's Congress. It's both parties in Congress, but it's definitely the Democratic White House that has given the green light to the genocide in Gaza right now, told Israel, no, we're always with you. Don't worry. Joe Biden could pick up the phone right now and do what Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s, where Reagan basically said to, I think it was Menachem Begin at the time, in Israel, that no, you got to bring your troops back from Lebanon. It's not okay to be conducting this war in Lebanon. Which was basically an extension of the war against the PLO. But, they'd gone into Lebanon and it was a disaster. And Reagan said, stop it, so they did. Yeah. This war and the genocide would not be taking place without U.S. weapons and U.S. political cover. We block all the UN resolutions. All other parties in the world, see this as the genocide that it is.
And it's such a... Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, as a Jew myself growing up after the Holocaust, this was like all about what we were learning, that genocide must never happen again, not to anyone. And to see, this is like, what else do you call this? When people are being targeted, when there are, assassins basically with guns waiting for people to come out and go looking for food and killing them, doing the same to hospital staff. When 80% of all buildings have been leveled, when 2 million people basically are denied food and water. We are on a death watch right now for all 2 million people who are surviving under just astonishing conditions. This is a game of fish in a barrel.
These are innocent people. And I haven't met a single Jewish person, individual human being that wants a genocide. Like both sides, we're not even in control of what these governments are doing as a people. And that's what's so frustrating and why I don't like talking about it, because it isn't black and white. It's a very nuanced situation. I mean, the genocide's black and white. I mean, the way people feel about it it's a nuanced situation.
It is. I mean, and it's a difficult conversation, but I think it's really important to make the facts clear, and they are as clear as day. They are rolling out on our computer screens and our iPhones every day that innocent people are being slaughtered right now. Yeah, there's a lot of history to this conflict. There always is in any genocidal situation. There's always a history of conflict, a history of tit for tat, and so on. But the bulk of that goes back to before the founding of the State of Israel, because Israel was founded on enormous ethnic cleansing and violence that began really from well before the State of Israel was declared. There was a very purposeful move of, that was propelling Jewish refugees who were, desperate and traumatized, and illustrate really why being genocided yourself does not then justify your committing genocide. There's no doubt, about the horrors that Jews were inflicted on Jews, starting long before the Holocaust. My family, came here fleeing pogroms in Russia and Poland, and where 5- and 6-year-olds were being conscripted into the Russian army. So there's a whole history here that goes long back, but this is what Gandhi referred to as an eye for an eye until we're all blind. That cycle of violence has to stop. And yeah, October 7th was horrific, but there was horrific violence that preceded it. So one episode of violence doesn't justify the next episode of violence. And we just need to comply with international law here, period, which says that use of food as a weapon, starvation is being used as a weapon. This is, everyone concurs, including, Joseph Borrell with the EU, who's like a major foreign policy figure, has also been calling them out. I mean, you even now have the U.S. Senator from Maryland, I forget his name, but he's also calling out now that continuing aid to Israel, while it is violating international law, while it is committing genocide, and while it is interfering with the distribution of humanitarian aid, which it totally is, that's the blockade here right now. It's Israel's doing. There's nothing God-given about this. The famine could end in the blink of an eye if Israel gave the okay. It is outrageous and a violation of U.S. law for us to continue funding Israel in any way right now while it is essentially committing genocide, and it is. And whether you just want to call it violations of international law or human rights, whatever you want to call it, the basis for denying aid to Israel is just undeniable right now on all sides. That will get things to stop. And then we have to use international law to move forward. We can't just make this up on the fly. You know, the U.S. invented a whole new kind of set of terminology to do an end run around international law. But we're top dog now, hardly, you know, we've been top dog for a century, but we're not going to be. And we ourselves are going to be in a position of needing international law very soon. In fact, we are right now. So we need to stop violating international law, stop degrading it. And what's going on in Gaza right now goes way beyond Gaza, because it is, you know, it's normalizing the torture and murder of children on a mass scale. And it is about throwing out international law. So we have to end both of those things here. And it's not only for the sake of Gaza, it's also for the sake of Israel, who is an absolute pariah. I mean, as a Jew, I feel like this is the most anti-Semitic generating thing that you could imagine, is for Israel to be in this position of committing genocide against especially women and children. This is just horrific. And if you wanted to generate resentment against Jews, this is how you do it. So it's awful on that score. It's awful because all of Israel's neighbors now are being mobilized against it. And there's enormous firepower when you add that all up, including Iran and including Iran's collaboration now with Russia. There's all the firepower in the world right now. Which makes the final point is that we're all in the target hairs on this, because this is like a pre-World War I set of complex alliances, but with nuclear weapons thrown in. And whenever you have a nuclear exchange now, you cannot make the mistake of thinking it's over there, because one nuclear armed submarine holds the equivalent of 4,000 Hiroshima bombs, which is enough to throw the entire world into nuclear winter, that is to depress agricultural production so much that we all starve, or at least half of us will starve. And this is a civilization-ending insult. So when we think about conflict, including in the Middle East, including about Gaza, we need to see ourselves in the crosshairs of this conflict. And for all of our sakes, we need to get with the program here and start, complying with international law and human rights and diplomacy, instead of using, pure militarism and economic brute force to dominate the world. So there's a larger solution here, which is within our reach, and there is no other way forward. So we have no choice.